In this video, we're embarking on a calm journey into one of history's most fascinating yet often overlooked worlds: life in a medieval monastery. We'll explore the silence, the routine, and the cold stones that shape the daily existence of monks who dedicated their lives to prayer, work, and contemplation. Behind monastery walls, far from the noise of medieval towns and the chaos of war, a different kind of life unfolded. It was a life governed by bells, marked by silence, and filled with rituals that remained unchanged for centuries. We'll walk through their days, feel the chill of stone corridors, and understand the rhythm that defined monastic existence. Relax, close your eyes, and let the story flow over you. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share in the comments where you're watching from. Let's begin. You are sleeping, but not deeply. Something in your body has learned to remain alert, even in rest. The darkness around you is complete, thick like wool, and the cold has worked its way through your blanket, through your rough woolen habit, into your very bones. You have been asleep for perhaps 3 hours, maybe 4. It is difficult to say. Time moves differently here, measured not by the position of the sun, but by the ringing of bells and the rhythm of prayers. Then it comes. The sound that pulls you from whatever shallow dream you were inhabiting. The bell. Not loud, not aggressive, but persistent. It rings through the stone corridors of the monastery, echoing off walls that have heard this same sound every night for 200 years. You open your eyes, but there is nothing to see. The dormitory is utterly dark. Winter has settled over the monastery, and the night is long. It will be hours yet before the first gray light appears in the eastern sky. You lie still for a moment, feeling the straw mattress beneath you, thin and lumpy. You can hear the rustling of your brothers around you in the darkness. Perhaps 30 men sleep in this long, narrow room, each in his own simple bed separated by low wooden partitions. The sound of fabric moving, feet touching cold stone floors, the soft clearing of throats. No one speaks. Speaking is forbidden at this hour. Speaking is forbidden at most hours, actually, except during the brief periods when the rule permits conversation. You push back your blanket and immediately regret it. The air is shockingly cold. Your breath makes small clouds in the darkness. You have slept in your undertunic, as all the brothers do in winter. It would be unbearable otherwise. Even so, you shiver as you sit up, your feet searching for the floor. When you find it, the stone is like ice against your bare soles. Shoes are for later, for the walk to the church. For now, you simply endure. Standing is an effort. Your body is tired. It is always tired. The monastic life does not allow for the luxury of full rest. You sleep from after complin, the final prayer of the day, until now. That gives you perhaps 4 hours if you are fortunate, 5 if you are very fortunate indeed. Then it is time for vigils, the night office, the prayers that are offered while the world sleeps. You can hear Brother Thomas nearby. You cannot see him, but you know the sound of his movements. He is old, perhaps 60 years, which is ancient for a monk. Most men do not live so long, and those who do rarely maintain the strength required for monastic life. But Brother Thomas persists. You hear his joints cracking as he stands, a soft grunt of discomfort that he tries to suppress. The rule encourages acceptance of suffering, and Brother Thomas has had a lifetime to practice. Your hands find the wooden partition beside your bed. It is smooth, worn by decades of other hands doing exactly what you are doing now. You use it to guide yourself, to steady yourself, as you reach for the habit that hangs on a peg. The wool is coarse against your fingers. You pull it over your head, feeling its familiar weight settle onto your shoulders. It smells of wood smoke and incense and human sweat. It is the smell of this place, of this life. You fumble in the darkness for your scapula, the apron-like garment that hangs over the habit. Your fingers know the routine even when your eyes cannot help. The scapula slides over your head, settles into place. Then the cowl, the hood that can be pulled up for warmth or pulled back for work. Everything is wool, everything is rough, everything is practical. There is no softness here, no comfort for its own sake. The body is a vessel, nothing more, and it does not require luxury. Shoes next. They are simple leather affairs, worn thin from walking these stone corridors, from kneeling in the church, from working in the garden and the fields. You slide your cold feet into them, feeling the slightly damp leather. Everything is always slightly damp in winter. The monastery cannot be heated, not really. There are fires in the warming room and in the kitchen, but everywhere else is cold. The church is cold. The dormitory is cold. The cloister walks are cold. You have been cold since October, and it is now deep January. You will be cold until April at least. Around you, the other monks are performing the same rituals. You hear the whisper of fabric, the soft sound of footsteps on stone. Someone coughs, a wet, rattling sound that speaks of winter illness. Someone else is breathing heavily, perhaps Brother Martin, who has never quite recovered from the fever he suffered last spring. But no one speaks. The great silence has held since Compline, and it will hold until after prime, the first office of the day. Between Compline and prime, speech is forbidden except in cases of dire emergency. And what, in a monastery, constitutes a dire emergency? Very little. Death, perhaps. Fire, but not cold. Not tiredness, not hunger. These are simply part of the life. You join the silent procession toward the door of the dormitory. Your eyes have adjusted slightly, enough to see the shapes of your brothers, dark forms moving through darkness. The monk ahead of you is tall, probably Brother William, who works in the bakery. Behind you is someone shorter, moving with careful steps. Brother Edmund, perhaps, who injured his leg last month and still walks with difficulty. The door opens onto a corridor, and here there is slightly more light. A single candle burns in a niche in the wall, tended by the brother assigned to watch duty tonight. The flame wavers in the draught that is always present in these stone passages. You can see faces now, drawn and tired, eyes heavy with interrupted sleep. But there is something else in those faces too. Acceptance. Purpose. This is what you have chosen. This is what all of you have chosen. A life of prayer and work, of discipline and devotion, of cold stones and interrupted sleep and endless routine. The procession moves down the corridor toward the night stairs, the special stairway that leads directly from the dormitory to the church. This is one of the architectural features that makes monastic life possible. The monks do not have to go outside into the winter night, do not have to cross the cloister in rain or snow. The night stairs allow you to descend directly into the church, into the place where you will spend the next hour or more in prayer. The stairs are worn smooth by centuries of feet. You place your hand on the wall to steady yourself as you descend. The stone is cold beneath your palm. Everything is stone here. The walls are stone. The floors are stone. The columns that hold up the roof are stone. Even the furniture is often stone. Carved benches and shelves built directly into the walls. Stone is eternal, unchanging, cold. It requires nothing. It does not rot like wood or rust like metal. It simply endures, as the monastery endures, as the prayers endure. You can hear the sound of chanting now, floating up from the church below. The cantor has already begun, his voice rising in the ancient Latin phrases that mark the beginning of vigils. Domine, labia mea aperies. Lord, open my lips, etos meum annuntiabit laudem tuam, and my mouth shall proclaim your praise. The words are as familiar to you as your own name. You have heard them every night for years. You will hear them every night for the rest of your life, if God grants you years and if you remain faithful to your vows. The church is larger than the corridor, and somehow even colder. The high ceiling draws the warmth upward and away. A few candles burn on the altar, their light reflecting off the silver candlesticks, off the golden cross that stands at the center. But most of the church remains in shadow. You can see the shapes of the columns, the pointed arches that march down the nave, the darker darkness that is the vaulted ceiling high above. You move to your place in the choir stalls. Each monk has an assigned seat, a wooden bench with a misericord, a small shelf that can be flipped down to provide support during the long hours of standing. The monks file into their places with practiced efficiency, no hesitation, no confusion. You have done this so many times that your feet know the way without thought. The church fills with the sound of men finding their places, the creak of wooden stalls, the rustle of habits. Then, as if by some unspoken signal, the sound fades. Everyone is in place. The cantor's voice rises again, and the rest of you join in. The chant begins. The Latin words flow over you, through you. You are not thinking about their meaning, not really. You have chanted these psalms so many times that they have become something deeper than meaning. They are rhythm, they are breath. They are the sound that marks the hours of your life. Venite, exultemus Domino. Come, let us sing joyfully to the Lord. Your voice blends with the voices of your brothers, rising into the cold air, filling the stone space with sound. Vigils is the longest office of the night. It consists of psalms and readings, hymns and prayers, all arranged according to an ancient pattern that varies with the season and the feast days. Tonight, in the depths of winter, in ordinary time, the office follows its familiar structure. 3 nocturnes, each containing several psalms, a reading from Scripture, and a reading from the Church Fathers. Your voice rises and falls with the chant. Your body sways slightly with the rhythm. Your mind drifts, then returns, then drifts again. You are aware of the cold. It is impossible not to be aware of it. Your hands are tucked into your sleeves for warmth, but your face is exposed. Your ears ache with the chill. Your feet, in their thin leather shoes, have lost most of their feeling. Around you, your brothers are similarly suffering, though no one complains, no one even acknowledges it. This is simply how it is. This is the life you have chosen. The readings come, proclaimed from the lectern by the brother assigned to reading duty this week. His voice echoes in the darkness, speaking of ancient prophets, of apostles, of saints who lived centuries ago in lands far from this cold northern monastery. You listen, but your attention wanders. You find yourself thinking about your bed, about the thin warmth of your blanket. You pull your thoughts back. This is temptation, the mind seeking comfort when it should be seeking God. Between the Psalms, there are moments of silence. These are not long, perhaps 10 seconds, perhaps 20. But in them, you can hear the night sounds of the monastery, water dripping somewhere in the cloister, the wind pressing against the thick walls, a mouse scurrying along a wall, the breath of 30 men standing in the cold darkness, their clouds of breath visible when they pass through the candlelight. Brother Thomas coughs again, that wet, troubled sound. Brother Abbot will probably send him to the infirmary after prime. The infirmary is one of the few warm places in the monastery, with its own fire burning continuously. The sick are permitted this comfort. The healthy must endure. You wonder briefly what it would be like to be ill, to be sent to the infirmary, to spend days in warmth and relative quiet. Then you banish the thought. This too is temptation. To wish for illness is to reject the gift of health that God has given. The office continues. Psalm follows psalm, each one sung in the ancient plain chant that has echoed in churches and monasteries for centuries. The melodies are simple, designed not to draw attention to themselves, but to carry the words, to make the words into prayer. Your voice joins with the others, sometimes strong, sometimes barely a whisper when tiredness overtakes you. You are not sure how long vigils lasts tonight. Perhaps an hour, perhaps longer. Time is strange at this hour, stretching and contracting. Sometimes a psalm seems to last forever, the verses marching on endlessly. Sometimes you emerge from a moment of distraction to find that several psalms have passed and you cannot remember singing them. Finally, the office draws toward its conclusion. The Te Deum, the great hymn of praise, rises from the choir. Te Deum laudamus, Te Dominum confitemur. We praise you, O God. We acclaim you as Lord. Your voice rises with the others, stronger now as the end approaches. The melody climbs and falls, filling the cold church with sound. Then it is over. The final prayer is spoken by the abbot. His voice, deep and steady, asks for God's blessing on the remainder of the night and the coming day. You bow your head, feel the words wash over you. Then silence returns, and the monks begin to file out of their stalls. Some will return to the dormitory to seek another hour or two of sleep before Lauds, the office that marks the true beginning of the day. Others, especially those assigned to early morning duties, will go directly to their work. The brother who tends the bakery must light the ovens now if there is to be bread for the morning meal. The brother who tends the animals must see to their feeding. The brother assigned to the kitchen must begin preparations for the simple breakfast that will be eaten after prime. You are not sure which path you will take. Your body aches for sleep, but your mind is now awake, turning over the day ahead. You have been assigned to work in the scriptorium this week, copying a manuscript of the Gospels that a neighboring monastery has requested. It is delicate work, requiring good light, steady hands, and complete concentration. It is also one of the more pleasant tasks in winter, because the scriptorium has a small brazier for warmth. Not much warmth, but enough to keep the ink from freezing, enough to keep your fingers flexible enough to hold the pen. You decide to return to the dormitory, to lie down even if you cannot sleep. You climb the night stairs again, your legs heavy with tiredness. The dormitory is slightly less cold now. The body heat of 30 sleeping men has warmed the air fractionally. You find your bed in the darkness, remove your shoes, and lie down fully dressed. The straw mattress receives you with familiar discomfort. Around you, other monks are doing the same. You can hear them settling into their beds, the sounds of adjustment and searching for comfort that will not come. But there is also something peaceful in these sounds. You are not alone. You are surrounded by brothers who share this life, who understand its difficulties and its rewards without need for words. You close your eyes. Sleep may come or it may not. Either way, you will rise again when the bell rings for lauds, and after lauds will come prime, and after prime will come terce, and so the day will unfold in its appointed rhythm. Days into weeks, weeks into months, months into years. The pattern never changes. The cold stones endure, the bells ring, the prayers rise into the darkness. This is the life you have chosen. A life of silence, routine, and cold stones. A life measured not in achievements or possessions, but in prayers offered, in hours spent in contemplation, in the slow, patient work of seeking God in the midst of discipline and discomfort. It is not an easy life. It is not meant to be. But it is, in its own way, a complete life. Everything unnecessary has been stripped away, leaving only the essential. Prayer and work, silence and community, cold stones and the eternal hope of something beyond the stones. You lie in the darkness and wait for the next bell. The bell rings again, pulling you from a half-sleep that never quite became rest. Your eyes open to the same darkness, though perhaps it is fractionally less complete than before. Or perhaps that is only wishful thinking. Your body feels heavier now than it did after vigils. The brief return to bed has somehow made the tiredness worse rather than better. Your muscles have stiffened in the cold, and when you sit up, your back protests with a dull ache that runs from your shoulders to your hips. This is the bell for lauds, the morning office, though morning is perhaps too generous a word for this hour. It is still deep night by any reasonable measure. Outside, beyond these thick stone walls, the world remains wrapped in winter darkness. But the monastic day does not wait for the sun. The monastic day begins in darkness, sanctifying the night hours, claiming them for God before the concerns of the world can intrude. You go through the same routine as before, shoes on cold feet, the habit adjusted, the scapula settled into place. Around you, the same silent movements, the same shuffle of tired men preparing themselves for prayer. But there is something different this time, a sense of permanence perhaps. After vigils, there was the possibility of return, of stealing another hour of sleep. After lauds, there is no return. The day has truly begun, and it will not end until Compline sends you back to this cold dormitory many hours from now. Brother Thomas is coughing again as he rises. The sound is worse than before, deeper, more persistent. You can hear him trying to suppress it, the effort making it worse. Someone, you cannot see who in the darkness, moves toward him. There is a whispered exchange, barely audible, technically a violation of the great silence, but permitted in cases of genuine need. Then the sound of two sets of footsteps moving away. Brother Thomas is being taken to the infirmary. You feel a mixture of concern for him and a small, shameful flicker of envy. He will spend today in warmth, while you shiver in the scriptorium. The procession down the night stairs is slower this time. Everyone is stiffer, more tired. The stone steps seem more treacherous in your exhaustion. You keep one hand firmly on the wall, feeling your way down. Ahead of you, someone stumbles slightly, catches themselves, continues. No one speaks. The only sounds are footsteps and breathing, and the distant chanting that has already begun in the church below. The church is exactly as you left it hours ago. The same candles burning, the same cold air, the same darkness pressed against the high windows. But your perception has shifted slightly. You are more awake now, more present. During vigils, you move through the office in a state of semi-consciousness, your body present but your mind drifting. Now, despite your tiredness, you are more alert. The second interruption of sleep has paradoxically sharpened your awareness. You take your place in the choir stalls. The wood is cold beneath you, even through the wool of your habit. You can see your brothers more clearly now. Your eyes have adjusted to the low light, and you can make out faces, postures, the small individual differences that distinguish one monk from another, despite the uniformity of dress and routine. Brother William, who stands 3 places down from you, has his eyes closed. His lips move with the words of the chant, but his face has the slackness of someone fighting sleep. Brother Edmund, the one with the injured leg, is leaning more heavily than usual on his misericord, taking weight off his bad leg. Brother Peter, the youngest of the community, barely 20 years old, stands straight and alert, his voice clear and strong. The young always adjust more easily to the broken sleep, the constant cold. Give him 10 years, 20 years, and he too will have Brother William's tired face, Brother Edmund's aching joints. The chant begins with a hymn, a melody that rises and falls in gentle waves. Aeterne rerum conditor, eternal creator of all things. The words speak of God's power over night and day, of the rooster's crow that signals the end of darkness, of the hope of dawn. It is fitting for this hour, this transition between deep night and early morning. Your voice blends with the others, finding the melody, settling into the rhythm that is as natural to you now as breathing. Lauds means praise, and the office is built around the great psalms of praise that have been sung since ancient times. Psalm 62 begins the psalms proper. Deus, Deus meus, a te deluce vigilo. O God, my God, to you I watch at break of day. Your voice carries the Latin words and part of your mind translates automatically. You have studied these texts, meditated on them, copied them in the scriptorium. They are written into your memory, into your heart. The psalm speaks of thirsting for God as a dry land thirsts for water. It speaks of the soul clinging to God, of God's right hand sustaining the soul. These are not abstract concepts to you anymore. When you first came to the monastery 7 years ago now, these words were mysterious, beautiful but distant. Now they have been worn smooth by repetition, like the stone steps, like the wooden stalls. They have become part of the architecture of your inner life. Between the psalms, there are antiphons, short verses that frame each psalm, that give it context and meaning. The cantor sings the antiphon, his voice alone in the darkness. Then the choir responds, splitting into 2 groups that alternate verses of the psalm, passing the sacred words back and forth like a precious object. Your side sings a verse, then the other side responds, then your side again. The rhythm creates a kind of meditation, your mind resting in the space between singing and listening. You are aware of the cold, but it has become a background sensation now. Your body has accepted it, stopped fighting it. This is a small victory that you have learned over the years. The body can be trained to endure, to accept discomfort as simply another condition of existence. The first winter you spent here was agony, every moment a battle against the desire for warmth. Now in your 8th winter, The cold is simply present. You note it, acknowledge it, and continue. The readings come. First, a passage from Scripture. Tonight it is from the prophet Isaiah. The brother at the lectern reads in clear Latin, his voice carrying through the cold air. The words speak of light coming into darkness, of God's glory rising like the dawn. You listen, and the words seem to speak directly to this moment, this waiting in the darkness for the light that will eventually come. Then a reading from the Fathers. Tonight it is St. Augustine, one of his sermons on the Psalms. The reader's voice rises and falls as he works through Augustine's intricate Latin, his theological reflections, his exhortations to holy living. You try to follow the argument, but your mind keeps drifting. You catch phrases, images. Augustine speaks of the soul as a bird caught in a snare, of God as the one who breaks the snare and sets the soul free. It is beautiful, profound, and you are too tired to fully grasp it. You make a mental note to return to this passage later, to read it in the library when your mind is clearer. The office continues. More psalms, more antiphons. The Benedictus, the canticle of Zechariah, which is sung at Lauds every day of the year. Benedictus Dominus Deus Israel. Blessed be the Lord God of Israel. The melody is familiar, comfortable. You have sung it thousands of times. You will sing it thousands more, God willing. As the office progresses, something begins to happen. It is subtle at first, so subtle that you are not sure if you are imagining it. The darkness in the high windows seems fractionally less absolute. You glance up, trying to see clearly, but the windows are too far above, and the candlelight ruins your night vision. Still you sense it. The first intimation of dawn, still more than an hour away but sending its advance messengers into the eastern sky. The change, real or imagined, affects the mood in the choir. There is a subtle lifting, a fractional increase in energy. Voices are slightly stronger. The chant has more life in it. This is the promise of Lauds, the office that stands at the threshold between night and day, between darkness and light. You are singing the sun into existence, calling the dawn into being with your prayers. Brother Peter's voice rises clear and strong on a particularly high note. He has a gift for singing, that one. His voice is pure, unforced, and it carries the melody effortlessly. If he had been born into a different life, he might have been a court singer, entertaining nobles with secular songs. Instead, he is here, his gift offered to God in a cold monastery church, heard only by a handful of tired monks and whatever angels might be listening. The office draws toward its conclusion with prayers of intercession. The abbot's voice leads, asking for God's blessing on the monastery, on the church, on the sick and the poor, on travelers and those in danger. After each petition, the choir responds, Kyrie eleison, Lord, have mercy. Christe eleison, Christ, have mercy. The Greek words preserved from the earliest days of Christian worship sound strange and ancient in your mouth. Then the final prayer, the blessing, and it is done. Lauds is complete. The office that praises God at the threshold of dawn has been offered. The monks remain standing for a moment in silence, the formal silence of the completed liturgy. Then, as if released by some invisible signal, the community begins to move. But you do not return to the dormitory now. The great silence is still in effect, will remain in effect until after prime. But the day has truly begun, and those who have morning duties must attend to them. You see Brother William moving toward the door that leads to the bakery. He will go now to check on the ovens, to begin shaping the dough for the day's bread. The brother who tends the livestock has already disappeared, heading toward the barns where the monastery's few animals are kept. You move with most of the others into the cloister. The cloister is the heart of the monastery, a square or rectangular walkway that runs around an open courtyard. It connects all the main buildings, the church, the chapter house, the refectory, the dormitory. The walkway is covered, with a roof supported by columns on one side and a solid wall on the other. The columns face inward, toward the courtyard, and between them you can see the garden that occupies the center of the cloister. The cold here is different from the cold in the church. There is air movement, a slight breeze that finds its way through the open columns. Your habit stirs slightly as you walk. The stone floor is slick in places where condensation has frozen. You walk carefully, placing your feet with attention. A fall on this stone would be serious, and the infirmary is already occupied with Brother Thomas. The cloister is where monks walk when they need to think, when they are memorizing texts or working through difficult theological questions. The covered walkway protects from rain and snow, and the repetitive circuit around the square is conducive to concentration. You have walked this path countless times, often with your lips moving silently as you memorize psalms or practice difficult Latin passages. Now in the deep winter pre-dawn, the cloister is beautiful in its austerity. A few candles burn in niches along the walls, their flames protected from the breeze by glass shields. Their light catches the frost that has formed on the columns, making them sparkle faintly. In the courtyard, the garden is dormant, the herbs cut back, the paths barely visible under a thin layer of old snow. In spring, this space will be full of life, bees moving between flowers, birds singing in the small fountain at the center. Now it is silent, sleeping, waiting. You walk slowly, your hands tucked into your sleeves for warmth. Other monks move around the cloister in the same direction, a slow processional of dark figures in the candlelight. Some walk alone, lost in thought. Others walk in pairs, though they do not speak. The great silence forbids conversation, but it does not forbid presence, companionship. Sometimes simply walking beside another person is enough. You find yourself walking near Brother Edmund, the one with the injured leg. He is moving slowly, carefully, obviously in pain. You adjust your pace to match his, a small gesture of solidarity. He glances at you, nods slightly in acknowledgement. No words are needed. You are brothers in this life, sharing its difficulties, its rhythms. The sky is definitely lighter now. You can see it through the columns, above the courtyard. Not light, not yet, but no longer the absolute black of deep night. It is the color of iron, of cold metal, a dark gray that hints at the blue that will eventually come. You watch it as you walk, marking the slow, almost imperceptible change. This is one of the pleasures of monastic life, the attention it trains you to pay to small things. You notice the gradual lightening of the sky because you have nothing else to distract you, no conversation to occupy your mind, no tasks that demand immediate attention. You simply walk and watch and notice. The bell rings again. This is the bell for prime, the first of the day offices. Lord sanctified the dawn, but prime sanctifies the beginning of work, the moment when the day truly begins. The monks begin to move back toward the church, the slow procession reforming. You will pray again, shorter this time, and then the great silence will end, and the working day will begin. But before you turn back toward the church, you pause for a moment at the eastern edge of the cloister. Through the columns, past the dormant garden, you can see a section of the outer wall. And beyond that, though you cannot see it, you know the land stretches away toward the east, toward the place where the sun will eventually rise. The sky is definitely lighter there. Not daylight, not even close, but something more than darkness. the promise of light, the assurance that the sun will return, as it always returns, that the darkness is not permanent, that dawn will come. It is a small thing, this lightening of the sky. It happens every day. It is utterly ordinary. But standing here in the cold, wrapped in wool and silence, you find it beautiful. This is what the monastic life has taught you, to find the sacred in the ordinary, the eternal in the everyday. God in the slow turning of the earth toward the light. You turn and follow your brothers back into the church for prime. The church is marginally lighter than it was during Lord's. The candles seem to burn brighter against the grey dawn rather than the absolute black of night. You can see more details now. The carved capitals at the tops of the columns, the painted ceiling beams high above, the faces of your brothers with more clarity. Prime is shorter than Lord's, more focused. It consists of a hymn, 3 psalms, a short reading, and prayers. It is the office that blesses the day's work, that asks for God's guidance in the hours ahead. The hymn speaks of the resurrection, of Christ rising with the dawn, of the soul rising from the sleep of sin. Your voice joins with the others, slightly stronger now. The multiple awakenings have paradoxically made you more alert. The Psalms are familiar. Psalm 53, Psalm 117, Psalm 118. You know them by heart, but you follow along in your mind with the Latin text as you sing. The words speak of God's faithfulness, of trust in God rather than human power, of the stone that the builders rejected becoming the cornerstone. These are psalms that have been sung at this hour for centuries, connecting you to an unbroken chain of prayer that stretches back through time. After the psalms, a brief reading from the Rule of St. Benedict. The Rule is the foundation of your life here, the text that governs every aspect of monastic existence. It was written more than 600 years ago by a monk who understood human nature, who created a structure that could sustain community life across generations. The reading today is about humility, about the ladder of humility that leads the soul toward God. You have heard this passage many times, but like the Psalms, it does not grow stale. Each hearing reveals new depths, new applications to your own life. Then prayers, including a special prayer for the abbot, for those in authority, for the benefactors who support the monastery. The response Kyrie eleison echoes in the cold air. Finally the blessing, and prime is complete. And with the completion of prime, the great silence ends. Not abruptly, not with a sudden explosion of conversation, but gradually, naturally. The monks begin to file out of the church, and you hear the first whispered words, practical communications about the day's work. The plow needs repair before we can break the north field. The ink supply is running low in the scriptorium. Did Brother Thomas make it to the infirmary? The sound of human voices, after hours of silence, is startling. Not loud, not intrusive, but present. The monastery is not a place of constant conversation, even during the permitted hours. But after the enforced silence of the night, even quiet speech seems almost jarring. You move with the other monks toward the chapter house. This is the next stop in the daily routine, the morning meeting where the community gathers for a reading from the Rule, for discussion of monastery business, for the assignment of daily tasks. It is called the chapter house because originally a chapter from the Rule was read there each day, gradually working through the entire text over the course of weeks. The sky continues to lighten as you cross the cloister. It is unmistakable now, the change from night to day. The eastern sky has gone from iron gray to a lighter pearl gray, and the first hints of color are appearing, a faint wash of pale blue. The stars, which were brilliant in the deep night, have faded. Soon the sun will rise, and another day will unfold in its appointed pattern. You can see your breath in the cold air, great clouds of it that dissipate slowly. Your feet are numb in their thin leather shoes. Your hands, even tucked into your sleeves, ache with cold. But there is something energizing about the morning, about the sense of beginning that comes with the growing light. Other monks are moving around the cloister now, heading to various tasks. The brother assigned to the kitchen is hurrying toward the refectory. There will be a simple breakfast after the chapter meeting, probably bread and weak beer, perhaps some porridge if supplies are good. The brother who tends the garden is heading toward the tool shed, though what work he can do in the frozen garden is unclear. Perhaps simply checking on things, making sure the winter has not caused damage that will need attention in spring. Brother Peter falls into step beside you. He is smiling slightly, his young face bright despite the early hour and the cold. "God's blessings on you, brother," he says quietly. His voice still carries the accent of his home region, a softness to certain consonants that marks him as from the south. "And on you," you respond. Your own voice sounds rough, unused. Hours of chanting are different from conversation, use different parts of the throat, different muscles. "Brother Thomas went to the infirmary," Peter says. It is not a question, just a statement. News travels quickly in the monastery despite the silence. "Yes," you say. "His cough was worse." Peter nods. "Brother Infirmarian will take good care of him, though I hope it is nothing serious. We have already lost 2 brothers this winter." This is true. Winter is dangerous in the monastery. The cold, the damp, the inadequate nutrition all create conditions where illness can flourish and spread. 2 monks have died since Christmas, one old, one not so old. Their places in the choir stalls remain empty, a visible reminder of absence. You reach the chapter house, and the conversation ends. The chapter house is a separate building, a square room with benches running along the walls, and a special seat for the abbot at the far end. Windows high in the walls let in the growing morning light, though the room is still dim. A single brazier burns in one corner, more for light than heat. The warmth it produces is negligible. The monks file in and take their places on the benches. There is a hierarchy to the seating, based partly on seniority, partly on position. The older monks, those who have been here longest, sit closer to the abbot's seat. The younger monks, the newer arrivals, sit farther away. You are somewhere in the middle, neither very senior nor very junior. The abbot enters last, and everyone stands until he takes his seat. He is an old man, the abbot, perhaps 70 years, though age is difficult to judge. He has been abbot for 25 years, a quarter century of leadership. His face is deeply lined, his hair white, his body bent with age and responsibility. But his eyes are sharp, and his voice, when he speaks, is clear and strong. "Let us begin," he says, "with a reading from the Holy Rule." The brother assigned to reading duty this week stands and moves to the lectern. He opens the large volume that rests there, the monastery's copy of the Rule of St. Benedict, and begins to read. His voice is steady, practiced. He has been preparing for this all week, studying the passages he would read, ensuring he understands the Latin perfectly so he can proclaim it with clarity. Chapter 4, he reads, "The tools of good works. First of all, to love the Lord God with the whole heart, the whole soul, and the whole strength. Then one's neighbor as oneself. Then not to kill, not to commit adultery, not to steal, not to covet." You listen to the familiar words. This chapter of the rule is a long list of spiritual instructions, 74 tools for living a holy life. Some are commandments from Scripture. Others are practical advice about humility, about speech, about relationships with others. You have heard this chapter many times, have copied it in the scriptorium, have meditated on individual verses during your times of private prayer. The reader continues through the list. Not to give way to anger, not to harbor a desire for revenge, not to foster guile in one's heart, not to make a feigned peace, not to forsake charity, not to swear, lest perchance one forswear oneself, to speak the truth with heart and tongue. The words wash over you. Some days they penetrate deeply, striking your conscience, revealing areas where you have failed. Other days they remain external, beautiful but distant. Today you are somewhere between. You hear them, recognize their truth, but you are also aware of the cold, of your tiredness, of the hunger beginning to make itself known in your belly. To relieve the poor, to clothe the naked, to visit the sick, to bury the dead, to help in trouble, to console the sorrowing, to hold oneself aloof from worldly ways, to prefer nothing to the love of Christ. This last phrase catches your attention. To prefer nothing to the love of Christ. This is the heart of it, really. All the rules, all the discipline, all the cold and hunger and interrupted sleep, all of it is meant to clear away the distractions, to create space for that love. Whether you have succeeded, whether any of you have succeeded, is a question you cannot answer. You can only continue trying day after day, year after year. The reading continues for several more minutes, working through the entire chapter. Finally, the reader reaches the end. These, then, are the tools of the spiritual craft. If we employ these tools unceasingly day and night, and return them on the day of judgment, our compensation from the Lord will be that wage He has promised. Eye has not seen, nor ear heard, what God has prepared for those who love Him. The reader closes the book and returns to his seat. The abbot sits in silence for a moment, allowing the words to settle. Then he speaks. Brothers, he says, the rule reminds us that we are craftsmen, that the spiritual life is a craft that requires tools and practice. We are not yet perfected. We are still learning, still practicing. This is why we read the rule again and again, why we return to these instructions continuously, not because we have mastered them, but because we need constant reminding of what we are called to be. He pauses, his eyes moving across the assembled monks. I see tiredness in your faces. I feel it in my own body. The winter is hard this year. Food is scarce. The cold is bitter. Brother Thomas has been taken to the infirmary, and we pray for his recovery. 2 of our brothers have died since Christmas. These are real difficulties, real sufferings. The abbot's voice is gentle but firm. But remember why we are here. We have chosen this life. We have taken vows of stability, of conversion of life, of obedience. We are not prisoners. We are not victims. We are monks, servants of God, and everything we endure by choice and for a purpose. He lets this sink in. Around you, monks are nodding slightly. Some look comforted by his words. Others look unmoved, lost in their own private struggles. Now, the abbot says, let us attend to the business of the community. This is the practical portion of the chapter meeting. The cellarer, the monk responsible for the monastery's material goods, stands to give his report. He is a stocky man, Brother Richard, with the practical air of someone who deals with physical realities rather than theological abstractions. Father Abbot, brothers, he begins, our stores of grain are lower than I would like for this time of year. We have sufficient for another month, perhaps 6 weeks if we are careful. After that, we will need to purchase grain from outside, or we will be reduced to very short rations. There is a murmur at this. Food is always a concern in winter, but to hear that supplies are genuinely low is troubling. The root cellar is in good condition, Brother Richard continues. Turnips, onions, carrots, they should last until spring. The salted meat is nearly exhausted, but we have some preserved fish remaining. Cheese is adequate. Beer is actually quite good this year, better than last. He consults a wax tablet where he has made notes. We need to repair the roof of the barn before the next heavy snow. Some of the animals are showing signs of poor nutrition. We may lose one or two before spring. The bees, of course, are dormant, but the hives appear to have survived the cold so far. The abbot listens carefully, occasionally asking questions. How much would grain cost if they must purchase it? Can any of the monastery's goods be sold to raise funds? Are there benefactors who might be approached for help? Brother Richard answers each question. The monastery has some wool from its sheep that could be sold. There are several illuminated manuscripts in the scriptorium that are nearly complete and could be sold to other monasteries or to wealthy patrons. As for benefactors, there are a few noble families in the region who have supported the monastery in the past, but the winter has been hard on everyone, and they may not have resources to spare. The discussion continues for some time. You listen with half your attention. These practical matters are important, the foundation that makes the spiritual life possible, but they are not your responsibility. You are not the cellarer, not the abbot, not one of the senior monks who manage the monastery's affairs. Your role is simpler: to pray, to work, to obey. Finally, the business is concluded. The abbot moves to the next item, the assignment of daily tasks. The prior, the abbot's second in command, stands with a list. Brother William, Brother John, Brother Stephen, you will continue work in the bakery and kitchen. Brother Edmund, despite your injury, you are assigned to light duties in the warming room, tending the fire and assisting any who need help with mending. Brother Peter, Brother Matthew, you will work in the scriptorium under Brother Dominic's direction. The list continues. Work in the garden, though what can be done there in winter is limited. Care of the livestock. Maintenance of the buildings, cleaning the church, assisting the infirmarian. Each monk receives his assignment for the day. Some assignments are permanent or semi-permanent. Others rotate to ensure that everyone shares in both the pleasant and unpleasant tasks. Your name is called. You will continue in the scriptorium. Brother Dominic has reported good progress on the gospel manuscript. With diligence, it should be complete within 2 weeks. You nod in acknowledgement. The scriptorium is one of the better assignments, especially in winter. The work requires warmth and light, so the scriptorium is one of the few heated spaces in the monastery. It is also quiet, peaceful work that allows for meditation even while laboring. The assignments complete, the abbot stands. Let us pray, he says, and the community rises with him. He leads a short prayer asking for God's blessing on the day's work, for strength to complete the tasks assigned, for patience with difficulties, for charity toward one another. Then he makes the sign of the cross, and the chapter meeting is concluded. The monks file out of the chapter house. The sun has fully risen now, though you cannot see it directly. The sky is bright, a pale winter blue streaked with thin clouds. The light in the cloister is no longer the dim gray of dawn, but true daylight, weak and cold but unmistakable. You make your way toward the refectory for breakfast. The refectory is a long, narrow room with tables and benches arranged in rows. At one end is a slightly raised platform where the abbot and senior monks sit. At the other end is a pulpit built into the wall from which a monk will read during the meal. The brothers file in and stand at their places. The abbot enters and takes his seat. Everyone remains standing until he blesses the meal. His voice rises in Latin. Bless us, O Lord, and these thy gifts which we are about to receive from thy bounty through Christ our Lord. Amen, the community responds, and everyone sits. The meal is simple. Bread, dark and dense, made from rye and barley mixed with whatever wheat flour the monastery can afford. A bowl of thin porridge, more water than grain. A small portion of cheese, a cup of weak beer. This is actually more than you will eat at other meals. Breakfast is considered important fuel for the morning's work. As soon as everyone is seated, the brother assigned to reading duty this week climbs into the pulpit and begins to read. During meals, silence is maintained except for the reader's voice. This serves multiple purposes. It preserves some of the silence that is central to monastic life. It provides spiritual nourishment along with physical nourishment, and it prevents idle conversation and gossip. Today the reading is from the lives of the saints. The reader's voice echoes in the stone room as he tells the story of St. Anthony of Egypt, the great desert father who lived in the 3rd and 4th centuries. Anthony withdrew from the world, lived in complete solitude, battled demons in the wilderness, and became a model for all who seek God through renunciation and discipline. You eat slowly, chewing the rough bread thoroughly. Your teeth have learned to cope with its texture over the years. The porridge is warm at least, providing some internal heat against the cold. The cheese is sharp, slightly moldy around the edges, but still good. The beer is, as Brother Richard reported, quite good this year, with a pleasant, nutty flavor. The story of St. Anthony continues. The reader describes Anthony's temptations, the ways the demons tried to lure him back to the world through visions of wealth, comfort, and pleasure. Anthony resisted through prayer and fasting, through faith and determination. Eventually, the demons gave up, and Anthony achieved such holiness that people came from all over the Roman world to seek his advice and blessing. You listen as you eat. The story is familiar, inspiring, and also slightly intimidating. St. Anthony lived in a cave in the desert for decades. You are in a monastery with dozens of brothers, with regular meals, with stone walls to keep out the worst of the weather. Your life is comfortable compared to his, and yet you struggle. You struggle with the cold, with tiredness, with wayward thoughts during prayer, with small resentments against your brothers. If Anthony could face demons in the desert, surely you can face the minor discomforts of monastic life without complaint. The meal does not last long, perhaps 15 minutes from beginning to end. Monastic meals are not social occasions. They are functional, designed to provide necessary nourishment with minimal distraction from the day's real work of prayer and labor. When the abbot rises, everyone else stands. He says a brief prayer of thanksgiving, and the meal is concluded. The monks begin to file out, moving toward their various assignments. You head toward the scriptorium. It is located on the 2nd floor of one of the monastery's buildings, positioned to catch the best natural light. You climb a stone stairway, your hand trailing along the wall. Your body is slightly warmer now after the food, though your feet are still cold in their thin shoes. The scriptorium is a long room with tall windows on 2 sides. Work tables are arranged to take maximum advantage of the light. At one end is a small brazier, burning carefully tended charcoal. The warmth it produces is modest, but after the cold of the church and cloister, it feels luxurious. Several monks are already there. Brother Dominic, who oversees the scriptorium, is a small, precise man with ink-stained fingers and the slightly stooped posture of someone who has spent decades bent over manuscripts. He looks up as you enter. "Good morning, brother," he says. "Back to the Gospel of Luke today. You made excellent progress yesterday. With steady work, We should have this manuscript ready for binding within the fortnight. You nod and move to your assigned desk. The manuscript you are working on is spread out before you. Several sheets of prepared vellum, some already covered with your careful script, others still blank and waiting. Beside the manuscript are your tools. Quills cut to exactly the right angle, pots of ink in black and red, a knife for scraping away errors, a straight edge for keeping lines even, a compass for marking out decorated initials. You sit down carefully, adjusting your position to catch the light from the window. The desk is at exactly the right height, designed specifically for this work. You flex your fingers, working warmth and flexibility into them. Cold fingers cannot hold a quill properly, cannot make the controlled, delicate movements that manuscript copying requires. Brother Dominic approaches with a small pot. "Fresh ink," he says, setting it beside you. "Mixed this morning. The black is good and dark. Excellent flow." You dip a quill experimentally. He is right. The ink flows smoothly, neither too thick nor too thin. This is important. Ink that is too thick will clog the quill and create blotchy letters. Ink that is too thin will feather on the vellum and create fuzzy, indistinct text. You review where you left off yesterday. You are in the middle of chapter 15 of Luke, the section containing 3 parables about lost things: the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son. Yesterday you completed the parable of the lost sheep and began the parable of the lost coin. You pick up the quill, dip it carefully, and begin to write. The Latin words flow from your hand onto the vellum. Aut que mulier habens dragmas decem, si perdiderit dragma munam, non ne accendit lucernam et averitumum, et croyerit diligenter, donne conveniat. Your hand moves steadily across the page, forming each letter with practiced precision. The script is called Carolingian minuscule, a style of writing that was standardized several centuries ago and has become the standard for manuscript production throughout Christian Europe. The letters are clear, regular, easy to read. This is not ornate calligraphy but functional text, designed to be legible and accurate. As you write, part of your mind engages with the meaning of the words. The woman who loses a coin and searches diligently until she finds it. The joy when it is found. Christ explaining that this is how God seeks after lost souls, how there is joy in heaven when one sinner repents. It is a beautiful parable, simple but profound. Your quill scratches softly against the vellum. The sound is soothing, meditative. Around you, other monks are engaged in similar work. Brother Peter is working on an initial capital for a psalter, carefully applying gold leaf to create a letter that glows even in the weak winter light. Another monk is preparing vellum, scraping it smooth with a curved knife, preparing it to receive text. Brother Dominic is proofreading a completed page, checking every letter against the exemplar to ensure perfect accuracy. The work requires complete concentration. A single slip of the quill can ruin a page. Vellum is expensive, made from carefully prepared animal skins. Each sheet represents hours of work by the brother who prepared it. To waste it through carelessness is a serious matter. Time passes. The sun moves across the sky and the light in the scriptorium shifts, becoming slightly brighter, then beginning to fade again. You work steadily, dipping the quill, forming letters, occasionally consulting the exemplar manuscript you are copying from to ensure perfect accuracy. The words of Luke's gospel flow from your hand. The coin is found. The woman calls her friends to celebrate. Christ draws the lesson for his listeners. Then you move into the third parable, the most famous and most complex, the parable of the prodigal son. Homo quidam habuit duos filios. A certain man had 2 sons. You write slowly, carefully. This parable is longer than the others, more narratively complex. The younger son who demands his inheritance and goes to a far country, his descent into poverty and degradation, his decision to return home, the father's joyful welcome, the older brother's resentment, Christ's conclusion about God's mercy and forgiveness. As you write the words of the father welcoming his lost son, you feel a sudden tightness in your throat. Quia hic filius, meus mortus, erat et revixit, perierat et inventus est. For this son of mine was dead, and has come back to life, was lost and is found. The words seem to speak directly to something in your own heart, some memory of your own wandering, your own return, your own reception into this community. You pause, blinking, composing yourself. Emotion has no place in the scriptorium. The work requires a steady hand and a clear mind. You dip your quill and continue. The bell rings. It is the bell for terce, the mid-morning office. You look up, slightly disoriented. Hours have passed. You have been so absorbed in the work that you lost track of time. Your back is stiff from sitting, your shoulders tight with tension. Your fingers are cramped around the quill. Brother Dominic stands. Time for prayer, brothers. Carefully set aside your work. We will return after the office. You place the quill in its holder, careful not to drip ink on the manuscript. You look at what you have accomplished this morning. Perhaps 2 full pages, covered with neat lines of Carolingian minuscule. It is good work, you think. Accurate, legible, worthy of the gospel text it transmits. You stand, feeling your joints protest, and follow the other monks out of the scriptorium and down the stairs toward the church. The pattern of the day continues. Prayer, work, prayer, work. This rhythm structures everything, giving shape to time, purpose to labor. The sun is higher now, visible through the windows of the cloister. The pale winter light falls in angled shafts across the stone floor. The day moves forward, measured not in hours but in offices, not in achievements but in prayers offered and tasks completed. This is the monastic life: silence, routine, cold stones. Prayer and work endlessly alternating, day after day, week after week, year after year. It is not an easy life. It is not meant to be. But it is, in its own austere way, a complete life. Everything unnecessary stripped away, leaving only what is essential. God and community. Prayer and work. The slow, patient journey toward holiness in the midst of ordinary days. You enter the church for terce. Your voice joins with your brothers in the familiar chants. The day continues in its appointed rhythm, and somewhere, far beyond these cold stone walls, the world continues its own rhythms. Kingdoms rise and fall. Wars are fought. Fortunes are made and lost. But here, in this monastery, the pattern remains unchanged. The bells ring. The monks pray. The manuscripts are copied letter by letter, preserving ancient wisdom for generations yet unborn. The cold stones endure, the silence deepens, the routine continues. This is the life you have chosen, and each day with each prayer and each hour of work, you choose it again. Good night.